I did want to talk about, and obviously we'll give you an opportunity to plug whatever you'd like, but something that you mentioned before is that you are the president of IWBC, which for those of you who don't know is the International Women's Brass Conference, which also for those of you who don't know is open to everyone.
Yes, men and
Would like to
women.
point out, yeah,
Yes.
which I didn't know about IWBC at all until I was doing my master's degree at Penn State with Professor Velvet Brown, and she encouraged me
Exactly.
to go to, I think it was 2017. I might have the year wrong, but it was at Rowan University in
Yes.
New
Oh,
Jersey
good.
that year.
Yeah.
And fantastic conference.
Yes.
I did the competitions as well, which are
Wonderful.
great. So what
Yes.
to
So
give a
that
little, please do,
so
yeah.
why does anybody, why should we have the IWBC? Well, Susan Slaughter was principal trumpet in the St. Louis Symphony for her whole career, 40 years from the 1960s all the way through up. And she's still a crackerjack. She still emails
Hmm.
me a couple times a week and we talk on the phone. She's wonderful. So she's retired now, but she decided this in the pre-internet days, right? When you couldn't network quite as easily, that there were women brass players. This whole hour we've been talking about it, right? They were there. She was one of them, but you didn't see them very often because they weren't invited to the stuff. So
Yeah.
so she decided that she couldn't get in, kind of like the women's orchestra. She couldn't get into she couldn't get into ITG or what, like so she decided she was going to make a welcoming space. And from the beginning, she had men. Both Gene Pokorny and Arnold Jacobs were at the first IWBC.
Nice.
I was there too. Yep.
Very
So
cool.
yeah, so she had people of color speak. She has people of color on the board of directors from the entire very beginning. She was really, really smart and hip to all of that stuff that we want to be more welcoming and create a space for all. So the IWBC conferences always featured, a big part of it is competitions. And you mentioned that. So there's a $10,000 first prize. The prize money is no joke. She fundraises through concerts in St. Louis all year long. We fundraise. So the conference competitions are really hardcore. There's one for each solo instrument, right? So trumpet, and then there's a like instruments, we're calling it. So trombone ensemble, trumpet ensemble. So in other words, not brass quintet. So leaving out brass quintet, but tuba euphonium ensemble, tuba euphonium quartet counts as the like. So except for brass quintet, the brass categories, because she felt like a trumpet ensemble, for example, there's some for those, but trombone choir, there's not a lot of competitions for tuba euphonium quartet or trombone choir. So there's prize money for that. So you can go and compete. And then it's just like any other conference. There's lectures and panels and performances every night. And it's not only women. A man can perform. And it's not only music by women, it's music of all people. But the presentation guidelines and our call for proposals is open now, actually. So the guidelines are that your preference will be given to proposals and presentations that have to do with diversity and inclusion, gender, race, class, all of these things. So the conference that was supposed to be at University of North Texas this coming May was postponed to next year. So Natalie Mannix and her team at UNT will be hosting us for 22, we're hoping. We have a Facebook and Instagram and a Twitter, so you can jump on and follow us. There's a website. The call for proposals was opened before, when we weren't sure what was going to happen. So it's just open still. You can go on our website and submit a proposal and sign up for the competitions I don't think that's all open yet because it's still, of course, more than a year away now. So the idea is that there is a great benefit to gathering just with one group. You could have a retreat that could be very rewarding just for girls, for example, right? The girl brass players could have a retreat and they could feel real comfortable, and that would be wonderful. That's very helpful. But the IWBC was never intended as that. It's intended as a conference for all, but it's just going to make sure that there are women that are featured.
Right.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah.
Is the
And
date?
I would say that,
Sorry, go ahead. No, go
I
ahead.
would say that conference that I went to was, say it much better than any of the ITEA from a perspective of you got so much more varied presentations and varied concerts. And, for instance, I talk about it because I studied with her, but Velvet Brown did her concert.
She did the one with the dance, right?
Exactly. With her and
dance. Oh my gosh, so awesome.
Yeah, Dr. Leach, who has retired from Penn State University, but he was on the choir faculty and music ed faculty there. He played piano with a dancer who I unfortunately I forget her name, but it's information about this presentation and concert that she does is out there. And it was
so wonderful.
One of the most moving things I think I've ever seen.
And
at a conference or just in general.
Yes, I mean, it's so much great stuff. And it's like we've been saying, there's nothing wrong with Bach. There probably was Bach played or Telemann played at some point at the IWBC. I don't know, maybe. Right? There's a lot of recitals. But it wasn't just only that. It wasn't only that. And so that's I think we're trying to be a model of, what, it's hard to change something overnight, but you could do a lot more. Many of us could do a lot more than we're doing. And so we don't have to revamp the entire tuba syllabus at your college, but you could just go online and see, what is the IWBC commissioned lately? There's all kinds of wonderful works. Like I have a whole handout of diverse works for brass. I'll email it to you if you want to, So the IWBC commissions works for brass every year. And so there's all sorts of, Tanya Leon wrote a commission for the IWBC. There's brass works. There's our IWBC website has the links, and you can see and like where to get them. And so the works for brass, as we talked about for rep, so that's one of our goals. The history, we do the Pioneer Awards to women and people who have gone before. So that's another feature that I really like. I'm on that committee. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So these organizations that I think sometimes people feel like, oh, well, the IWBC, it's, I don't know if it's for me. Sometimes if you're lucky, you haven't really felt that you've experienced, a sexism, or that you might be a younger person, a woman who plays brass, and you might think, I had somebody tell me once, I didn't think that was for me. And then they went to one, and they played in some of the ensembles, and they realized the joy that comes from getting together. Like you were saying before, let's create together, let's make a concert, let's do a panel, let's mm-hmm. have a workshop. And those can be so inspiring, and it can fill us so that we can, when I'm a believer in talking about negative energy comes at us all the time, regardless of who we are, regardless of what groups you belong to. And we need tactics to deal with it. As artists, mm-hmm. we put our soul on a plate and we hand it to the audience to destroy, right? So as artists, we're speaking out our story when we play. And it can be hard sometimes. And one of the things that we can do to get through it is to band together. Susan Slaughter has a quote I love. I have it written on my bulletin board above my desk. And she says, "Don't go it alone." And I love that. And that's like the motto for the IWBC in a nutshell. Don't go it alone. And it could be true for all of us, whether we're a marginalized ensemble or whether we represent that or not. This sense that we want to band together. Now we're in the middle of a pandemic. I think we all are realizing this is a thing. We really did miss what we took for granted. So don't go it alone.